Has there been a person in your life that provided support in a challenging season? I'm your host, Danielle Zapchenk, and thanks so much for listening to the Parable Podcast. We are collaborating again with the Baton Pass. If you haven't heard about the Baton Pass before, they exist to empower overcomers to share their stories in a powerful way that brings hope, healing, and radical restoration. This mission really connects to what the Parable Podcast is all about, is that our stories matter. And for the past few years, I've hosted some of their events. I'm on their leadership team, and I have seen the impact of what is happening in the hearts of so many women. Today, we are going to dive into where courage meets connection with the Baton Pass hospitality coordinator in Chicago, Julie Thomas, who shares about what happened after the diagnosis shook her world.
I would text her at crazy hours. I think it helped that she was along there in my faith journey too. I came to faith after I was diagnosed, but having someone that went through this to answer some questions I had and lean on through some of those questions, I immediately asked Kelly, I want to pass that baton on. Like, how can I help? How can I help? I want to be there. I want to be somebody's Susan.
Here's my conversation with Julie Thomas. I think we go through life where we want our stories to be shared. We want these chains of our past traumas, past hurt, past secrets really to be broken off for us so that we can live fully into this life and ultimately have these divine connections made with other people that maybe we don't even realize at the same time. So I am excited as we've continued this Baton Pass partnership, this collaboration, if you will, to introduce you to Julie Thomas. Julie, welcome.
Thank you, Danielle, for having me.
Yeah. Well, it was fun to jump on today because I'm like, oh, I do know you. I know you by Julie, but I had no idea what your last name was. So just grateful to have a chat today and get to learn a little bit more about you. Julie, what would you say is the season of life that you're in? We do this a lot at the Baton Pass, just kind of like checking in with ourselves. Where are you today?
I am in the, fresh wind spirit. I am living life and enjoying every day and making sure every day we're creating a memory.
Yeah.
Always looking at somebody and smiling at them because maybe they started the day off a little bit hard. So just giving them that little bit of extra sunshine in their day because believe me, I have gone through a storm and have appreciated any little bit of sunshine anyone would give me.
Do you feel like you've always had that graciousness about you, or was that something that was learned over time?
Honestly, people I've come into contact with, haven't seen them in years on the work side. They always said that I would always smile. So I guess I've always had it.
I think that's sometimes hard for us to wrap our minds around because that's just what we do. And sometimes I think, well, doesn't everybody do that? Or I don't think that's very special, but I think that's a great mindset to have. And even that with ourselves, right? We walk through life and we're like, oh, I feel so overwhelmed. And just to give us our own graciousness is super helpful. Julie, in a few days, you are about to head to Mexico with your husband. First time out of the country without your children. That's exciting. How are you feeling?
Anxious.
Okay.
I know they're fine. They're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm probably like my mom because she never took vacations without me and my sister either. And I'm just like, yeah, why do I need to?
Yeah.
But I'm sure it'll be good for me and my husband too.
Do you feel like you guys, some couples are like, oh, we have date nights scheduled every week, every month. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. But I feel like sometimes we neglect that just because we're living life. How about you guys? Is that easy? Is that a challenge? I know this is a luxury for sure.
I have amazing parents. My mom has always made an effort for both me and my sister to give us that with our husbands. A date night. So we're usually good at that. I'd have to say, having COVID 2 years ago, I still can't smell or taste. So I'm not anxious to go out to eat because I can't taste it anyways. So I need to find other date night things.
Oh my goodness. Julie, why don't you tell us a little bit about, your first experience that you've ever had with the Baton Pass? I think you're connected with Kelly, the founder, because of Mission Church. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did you just get involved because you heard about it through the grapevine? They're like, oh, there's an event. That sounds great.
I had no idea what Baton Pass was. I was actually invited by a gal who's very much involved with Baton Pass, Susan Maloney, who invited me and said, I think this would be great to come and check out the topics and such. And someone who's so outgoing, was actually very nervous going to a place knowing there's 100 women there. And I only know Susan. I got to look for her.
Yes.
But it was the best night that I needed right at that time. It was amazing.
I think you like tapped into a part for any of us, women specifically, walking into a room of women that maybe you don't even know. And you're like, what am I going to? That's scary. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I don't like the unknown, someone being so outgoing and the speaker in my, at work and everything else I sat in the car and I was like, oh, when do I go in? Should I go in now? I'm watching all these people go in, this is bizarre. Just go.
Yeah. Well, I think there's like that tension of like how we lead our everyday lives. Like you're right. We know what we have to do in our job, who we work with. We understand our families, but now to walk in and we don't know these other women. Do we have to be vulnerable? Because if you're not at a place to do that, and sometimes you feel like, well, these ladies are strangers. And, for me, like I think about like, well, will I be accepted? Am I good enough in this space? Is my story big enough or is it too small? Like those are the things that we tell ourselves. So I appreciate you like walking through, like I was sitting in my car and second guessing, walking in.
And not knowing what the events are, right? Like I just knew that, and I trusted the person who was inviting me, that this was the right place for me, but not the complete unknown.
It's
scary.
What would be your encouragement now being on the other side? You've helped with multiple different events since then. What would be your encouragement to the woman that's sitting in her car or just like about to press the button to like click the ticket to go? Why come?
Because you will continue to keep coming back. Get out of that car, buy that ticket to come, because every event is so different. The women that I've met at the events or listened to speaking at them have impacted my life so much. And maybe they don't know that, maybe they do know that, but I've tried to share that and thank people for their time because it is life changing. Let me tell you.
I think that's why Kelly and the Baton Pass and this podcast connect so much. It is truly about our stories. Sometimes we wonder, like, does it matter? And it really does. And even just like hearing stories and maybe in that moment, you're not recognizing like, okay, like, thank you for sharing. And then later on, something happens that you're like, wow, I'm reminded of what this woman was sharing so that I could now understand where I am. It's like, it is the passing of the baton, if you will. So Julie, I would love for you to kind of share with us one of your parable stories and where you found yourself.
So I think it was 2 years ago now. My goodness, I can't believe it's been 2 years ago now. I was 41 and went for my first mammogram and found out I had breast cancer. So I believe that has been the most impactful story ever in my life. And it has truly transformed me to who I am today, to who I have in my life today, and my overall faith journey. Just at so many points in my life that moment changed me forever.
When you say like, it's that initial shock. I recently I've gone through two, but my mom recently had cancer and you don't know what's going to happen with the mammogram. They're like, oh, we'll just send you the scans and we'll let you know. And you just kind of think of like, this is a routine thing. Like we're just going about our lives. You're in your 40s. I'm in my 40s as well. And it is this like shock. It is a complete course change of your life. Tell me a little bit about that first couple hours, those first couple of days of what was running through your head.
My kids.
Yeah.
I knew I could go through whatever was going to come my way, but just wondering what that meant for my kids.
I mean, there is so much emotion that you walk through. Your brain immediately goes to the future. You think about like all of the stuff that you didn't know you needed to know in the cancer journey. Like there's a lot of words, a lot of information, a lot of appointments, and a lot of decisions to make. So it is in that space so overwhelming. You said this kind of transformed you. Now looking back on it, what was that process like? I mean, nobody was like, yes, I hope to be transformed in my life and I hope it's through cancer. What was that like for you?
I think it's just relationship changing. So I don't even know how I put it out there to let people know at church that I was diagnosed and a gal had reached out to me that she was a breast cancer survivor. And I really latched onto that because I'll tell you, someone who has went through the cancer journey, as much as I love my family, my friends, and their support, there's nothing like having someone who went through it be alongside you because they understand the questions, the fears, just the everything that you're going through. They went through it.
Yeah, I think that is so helpful. I think when we think of the Baton Pass, like when we think about the people on the track, as you can tell, I'm not a huge sports person. So, like when they pass that baton, you're hoping that they grab that. And I think so many of us are at these moments of quiet desperation in our life that we're just searching, like, whose baton can I grab? Because it just is too much. Tell me a little bit about how just having that one person to grab onto, like, really helped you in your faith. It helps you kind of center yourself to be able to navigate this throughout the next year or two.
I feel like I bombarded her so much. I would text her at crazy hours. I think it helped that she was along there in my faith journey too. I came to faith after I was diagnosed. She was there with me as well. But having someone that went through this to answer some questions I had and lean on through some of those questions, I can tell you I never asked the question, why me? Because I feel like coming through this, I knew why me. Yeah. And Baton Pass, actually being at that event kind of helped me answer that question too, or never have to answer that question. Because I immediately asked Kelly, I want to pass that baton on. Like, how can I help? Yeah. How can I help? I want to be there. I want to be somebody's Susan. Yeah. You know? Yeah. I wanted to be somebody's Susan.
That's so good. I would be curious, when you're walking through this journey, now, were you already at the Baton Pass after you had your diagnosis, or was this prior to?
No, this was while I was going through treatment. I actually went to the Baton Pass. Yeah. Or was finishing treatment. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to know, we go through ups and downs in our life, and, we kind of ask God, why? Like, why did this have to happen? I'm in my 40s. I'm young. Okay. I'm young. I have these kids in my life. And even whether or not you guys had a history of breast cancer in your family, it's still I don't understand the point of this. Can you talk to me a little bit about any frustrations, which I'm sure you had, that just kept coming up, and it was you just had to mull over in your mind and work through those?
Like I said, I don't know if I necessarily said, why me? But I had a lot of moments like, show me it's going to be okay. Because my biggest fear was leaving my two young boys. Yeah. They need their mom. I have a fabulous husband and fabulous support, but they need their mom. So it was more saying, show me I'm going to be okay. So it was leaning on Susan, who would send me passages to read and to lean on. But it was, don't lean in on your own interpretations, because I would say, oh, this is going to happen, and I'm reading too much into it. And it was like, no, don't lean. Trust me. I've already been there. We're going to get through it. We already, right? He already had this plan written out for me, but I needed to go through it to learn to grow in my, like I said, to grow in my relationships. Me and my husband, we've had our ups and downs. Maybe we were in a down spot at that moment, but our marriage, our relationship, oh my goodness, got stronger. Sometimes I tease and I say, I don't know why I chose you as my husband, or why you were chosen as my husband. It's not for your brains, it's not for your money. Oh my gosh. This is going in a whole nother direction, Danielle.
It's okay.
But it was because of all of them people. He was the right person to support me through this. Yeah. So that's why. He was the right partner.
Yeah, you kind of wonder sometimes in a married relationship, we grow and change as humans. So you kind of look over and you're like, okay. But God's just like, I am above all things. And these are these moments of our lives when you realize, okay, He has, set things in place so that we get the support that we need, that somebody loves us in the ways that we need to be loved. And it's just there. I would be curious, Julie, when did Jesus become more than just a name to you? Did you grow up in the faith? Was this new to you? Because out of this, did Jesus kind of come into the picture?
So I grew up Catholic, which maybe some folks can relate to that. It's what does that mean? You go to church on holidays and you say, the Our Father and such. So not really, right? I didn't have a relationship with him until during COVID. I started watching the services online through Mission. And finally, I think again in 2001, that summer, I was like, okay, grab up the family. My friend from high school goes to Mission and she'd always invite. And I'm like, yeah, we'll get there. And we went and we haven't stopped since. And again, all in the timing. So we went the summer of 2021. I decided I'm signing me and my husband up for Alpha. So we went to Alpha that fall and we became so close to that circle at Alpha that in fact, when I was diagnosed that following March 2022, it was that Alpha circle that I leaned on through everything and then came to faith that time as well in February, March. So again, I think the timing of it all really was impactful and my relationship with him has just grown since then.
Absolutely. While you were going through treatment, you have so many different appointments, you meet so many doctors and so many people. Was there like a moment that you're like, oh gosh, I was even while doing chemo or while doing radiation, I was able to pour into somebody else, maybe another woman who was walking through the same thing?
It wasn't until after all of that. Unfortunately, a few months ago, someone who, ironically or because of timing, had sat at my Baton Pass table before, and I had shared my story, my journey that I was going through treatment at the time at that table. And this gal had remembered that and remembered my face, and seeing my face at future Baton Pass events came to me to tell me that she had watched my strength over the last year.
Wow.
And was now needing my strength to help her through a journey because she has been recently diagnosed with breast cancer. So passing that baton to try to give my Susan strength to this girl to go through it.
Yeah, we just don't realize like sometimes just our presence, pieces of our story can really be transformational. You just don't recognize like when that's going to come into play, how certain seeds are planted so that they can grow in the future. One of the themes, or the entire theme, I should say, for the upcoming fall events for the Baton Pass is Brave Enough. Looking back at your journey, Julie, did you feel brave during that time? Or now you can say, I didn't feel that way, but looking back, I was a fighter. I was brave enough to walk through this season of my life.
Probably going through it, I didn't see myself that way. But now looking back, I mean, I was pretty badass, right? Like I worked through the whole thing. I didn't take any PTO to do any, chemo treatments. I would sit there working, having conference calls, right? So yeah, I went to my son's baseball games after treatment and was freezing in the freezing rain, right? And I did it. Yeah. I didn't stop. I pushed through. So yeah, I was brave.
And it's this weird concept of like, I think so many of us, like for women, we're told as we're younger, like you can do anything. Like you got to be a strong woman, and it's hard. We can be brave, but also gentle and gracious and scared at the same time. Like we can hold two things. It kind of makes me think, because it's hard for me to ask for help because I've been told, oh no, like I'm going to take care. Sure, I can carry 65 bags of groceries in my house by myself. I will do it. Yeah. So I can see myself, if I ever had to walk through that situation, how I see myself now, I would be doing that. But I think also brave is asking for help like you did with Susan. Brave is also being present and just saying, I'm relying on you, God, because ultimately we aren't in control. It's hard. Why do you think, Julie, like we need more brave women in our world? Why do you think that's helpful to not only each of us, but also future generations?
Because we need to show women they can be, right? I feel like if Susan wasn't brave enough to share her story, I don't know if I would have been brave enough to get through my journey. I don't know if I wasn't brave enough to get out of the car to come to Baton Pass event, I don't know if I would be helping this other gal. Maybe someone's not going to relate to my breast cancer story, right? And I hope, right? I don't want to hope that on anybody, but maybe they need to be brave enough just to share their story, because a little bit of it could help somebody else.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is something you still need courage for in your life? I mean, you've gone through all of this, but now as you continue to walk through, I mean, we're still going to have like anxious parts of our life, scary moments, questions like, is our diagnosis coming back? What's something that you need courage for these days?
That last part, right? Knowing that my story is never going to be the same exact as somebody else's. Mm-hmm. I'm in support groups too, but when another movie star passes away of a reoccurrence, you're like, oh no, is that going to be me?
Yeah.
Having the courage to know we are different. Our stories are not completely the same. Yeah. Our diagnoses are not completely the same. So courage just to know I'll be okay.
I just want to share, because I just got a text from Kelly because I asked her about you, and she just says that you are such a gift and a huge blessing in the Baton Pass. She's an amazing friend. I'm sorry to get emotional. She's an amazing friend, wife, and mama. She inspires me with her faith and her ability to live in the present moment, even when things are difficult. What does it mean to have somebody say that about you?
It means a lot, because that's my goal. Is I want, to be that, all of that. And I don't know, sometimes on bad days where you're like, I don't know if I'm any of that. Yeah. So thank you, Kelly.
What I've experienced with this community is just like so many women just wanting to support one another. I think so easily our culture tells us that women are catty and like the Real Housewives. However, I have just been so supported, loved, and just seen other women connect in a way that is just so beautiful. And I think, that's one of my heart's desires, that when we think about women for future generations, they can look to the Baton Pass or other areas and say, wow, like these women, like they know what's up. We're here to support each other through the mess and, the hardship, the good times and the bad, and just grateful for a space like that. Julie, will you be at the Chicago event coming up?
I will be. It is already marked on my calendar.
Yeah. So we have the Chicago event coming up. All the details will be in today's show notes. Julie, as we wrap up, any final thoughts that you wanted to share today, either about the Baton Pass or your journey?
Just overall, with the Baton Pass, I feel like this is such an amazing group for people to share their stories, to lean on other women, to lean on the courage and the bravery of others to help you get through that next time if you need to. I can't encourage enough people to take that step to come to one event, and you will be connected and you will be hooked and you will be so bummed you have vacation and you missed something. And also, if personally, something I could ever help anybody to share in the courage or share more pieces of my story to help others, I would be happy and delighted to do that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Yes. Well, Julie wants to be your Susan. If there's anyone out that is like walking through this time and you're just like, I feel like I'm in the deep end right now, we'd love to connect you with Julie. We'll have all of Julie's contact information in today's show notes. And we'd love to see you at either Chicago or Arizona or upcoming Central Illinois event with the Baton Pass. Julie, thank you so much for being on the Parable Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
After recording with Julie, I was kind of reflecting, like, why was I crying? Which I cry through many things. If this is your first episode, get ready. I do it all the time. But I think I know what it's like to have someone speak into my life, encourage me, and recognize not only what I do, but the gifts that God innately gave me. And I want others to know that so much. So when I read that text message back to Julie just now, it brought me such joy. And gosh, it's such an easy way for us. It's so huge for us to say, I see you. I understand you. I appreciate you. And I guess that's why I get emotional. So I appreciate Kelly speaking into Julie, and just like we can do that. I mean, we can do that as humans, as God's children. And it just feels so good. I love it. We all can be brave enough in our own lives. And so we would love to see you at the Chicago event on October 6th. And I'm definitely going to be there. I will be hosting, and I hope that you could be brave enough to come on out. You already know me. You already know Julie. So grab those tickets today. They do end up up selling out, and we are going to have an amazing time together. To connect with Julie or the Baton Pass, simply visit DanielleZapchenk.com for details. And here are 2 reflection questions from our time with Julie today. Number 1. How can you choose bravery today? Maybe that's by sharing your story with a friend, acknowledging certain aspects that you need to change. Maybe it's making a tough decision. You get to decide. How can you be brave today? Number 2, I'd love for you to reflect on someone who maybe looking back, you can realize now that was your Susan, right? When you needed them the most, they were there to pass the baton to you in your time of need, in your time of struggle. And either you can just reflect on that and also just thank God for that person. And if they're still around and you're still connected, just thank them too. If you're looking for more information on the Baton Pass, or you want to hear more stories like this from some of the women, we have a whole list available in the show notes and also playlists on YouTube, and we'd love for you to go check it out. Also, we couldn't forget my husband, Eric, for his editing skills on this episode. That's going to do it for today. I'm grateful that you took the time to spend it with me. Remember, your parable showcases how God connects us so that we can have courage. We'll see you back again next week on the Parable Podcast.